Very warm welcome to you. Good evening. It's Gene from maverickstar Observatory. I've just been looking at this article dated September 20th, 2013. Long time ago, 10 years ago, a decade ago. I've got to say the word decade. Anyhow, I was reading this article. I found it very interesting. It does date back, obviously, to some research that was being conducted with superconductive computers, or should I say supercomputers, and what they were simulating was the simulations that supported the idea that during past ice ages a slightly faster rotation rate for the Earth could have increased its magnetic field. Now, this is one of the things that we said we could possibly see, although it hasn't happened yet. It doesn't outrule that it could do, because I've always said, we've got three anomalies on the poles of our planet. One is the poles themselves, the magnetic north and south pole. Two is the Arctic climate, and three is the rotational axis. And what they're suggesting is that if the rotational axis speeds up, and what they suggest is that it would speed up if there was a massive increase in the ice, let's say, on the northern and southern hemispheres. What they assimilate this to is an ice skater with her arms out, pirouetting, and then she brings her arms in and she goes faster. You can try this on a hydraulic chair with one bar in the middle. If someone spins you with your arms out, you go at a certain speed, but as soon as you bring your arms in, you'll notice that the rate will increase. What they're suggesting is that this leads to, according to their studies, an increase in the strength of the magnetosphere. And they also said, if we just read a little bit further down, something very interesting. Rock samples show the variations in Earth's magnetic field over tens to hundreds of thousands of years are roughly synchronized with ice ages. First of all, we're not talking about ice ages. According to the status quo on this, we're still in an ice age. We're not in a glacial period, and the two shouldn't be confused. Glacial periods are a result of the Milankovitch cycle, which is mentioned right at the very bottom of this article. Where is it? Oscillations in the Earth's tilt and orbital path that leads to climate oscillations, and then in brackets we have the Milankovitch cycle. We know that the Milankovitch cycle is responsible for the 100-year cycles that puts us in temporarily interglacial period, and then more longevitily into a glacial period. So we're in an interglacial for about 12 to 15,000 years. We have nice warm weather, vegetation flourishes. That means the environment is good for other species across all the ranges to flourish, and then we go back into a 90,000 year cooling period. And I presume that at some point on the return back to that cooling period, we hit a thermocline, and that could be a sudden change in temperature. Now that would lead, like this article is talking about, that would lead to more ice being placed closer to the rotational axis on the north and south poles, and according to that, they would get, as a result of the faster rotation due to the added ice at the poles, we would get an increased magnetosphere, or more protection, which is good. So this is all part of the natural process then, according to what these scientists have found. It all seems to fit very nicely as well, because let me show you in the next picture something that I haven't heard anyone pointing out, but I think it's more coincidental, more synchronized than it is coincidental. Have a look what I'm talking about. I'll just go through it with you. So to explain this, what I really want to just do is talk about the top left and bottom left pictures. What the top is showing is temperature. The darker blue going into purple shows temperatures that range from around about 35 minus to 40, maybe 45 minus. These are the coldest regions on our planet, and just look at the right hand side top chart. You'll see that where those circles are the highest intensity of magnetism. Can't be any coincidence, this. And again, on the bottom left, we can see the intensity in a different way. I can show you now that over in Canada, you've got between 50 and 55 nanoteslas, and then over in Russia, you've got around close on 60,000 nanoteslas. Down over just the South Peninsula of Australia, or South Coast, you've got around about another 50 to 55 nanoteslas. That's the strength. And then in the blue we have the South Atlantic anomaly, which is the weakest region of our planet, which is breaking apart now, even though this old picture doesn't show it. But what I want to concentrate is the intensities of magnetism and the sub-zero temperatures. It's no coincidence, this. There is a link, and this could be what changes the mass on our planet, which could upset not just the oscillation of the orbital rotation, but also the the solar orbit that we do every year. It could also change that. And well, we've seen the experiments, haven't we, on the what is that scientist called? The Benejakov effect. This is where you have, say you've got a ball, a sphere spinning, and then you clunk a little bit of weight on it and you spin it out in space. It will rotate about 4 times before it flips 180 degrees and rotates again, and then repeats that cycle. All we would need to do to get that same effect to happen on Earth would be to change the mass of the ice. And that is exactly what is taking place right now. What I will say is that at this present moment, the rotational axis has not moved. And in that scientist's experiment, what they were saying is that even though in their experiment they had accelerated it by half hour on the year, that would be overkill. And the reason why they did it overkill is so that they could get the results to show you what would happen over a 200,000 year cycle or period. But what they said, it would be more close to a change of just a second. And we've already had that, haven't we? A change in the rotational speed of a second. This is something that hasn't been talked about much in mainstream, but it has from some of these scientific organisations. So we could be seeing a gearing up to eventually see that third uninterrupted anomaly start to begin to show abnormal behaviour in its own right. And again, I don't think that it is a coincidence that first of all we have the magnetic poles in that region. Second of all, where the highest intensity of these regions are, we have sub-zero temperatures, or the Arctic Circle. And then we also have the rotational axis. You see, even though the article is from 2013 and it's a decade years old, it doesn't make any difference. In fact, I like some of the older information, because back then I'm sure that there were people that were trying to push out information from these organisations that were being told even then to keep their mouths shut about these changes that are about to occur in our planet. And I'll give you a good example of that if we just leave this for now, but you get the idea. The top left chart is temperature and the bottom is magnetic intensity, and so is on the right, but it's just showing you the world magnetic model, and I've just overlaid the circles in those regions. The arrows represent the weaker fields. So if you just look before we leave this, where the weaker field is in between Canada and Russia in the northern hemisphere, you'll see that there is, in that same region of weaker field, there is also warmer climate peaking up through the two regions in between Canada and Russia. It's no coincidence, guys. We are returning back into a glacial period. The Arctic ice, let me just show you. So we're over on Pole Shift News looking at the sea ice extent, and if we just scroll down to Arctic sea ice extent, that red line is showing us 2023's progression. You can see it's on the top of all the others, so it's a decade breaking records, still on the same trend for breaking more records, and we are getting closer and closer to that 1972 to 2022 average line. Already, you know, the Earth has put on probably 4 million square kilometres, and to give you an idea of how big that is, it covers all of Europe, the UK and Ireland. It's a massive area, and you know, it's happening. So the ice is rebounding. You know, the intensity is where we have the coldest regions on our planet currently, and we know that the intensity is shifting over towards Russia. And if you're in Canada, you're probably wondering why aren't we noticeably seeing year in, year out, an increase in the warmer weathers. If the theory is right, you know, if the intensity is where the lowest temperatures are, then the weaker intensities should be where the warmer climates are. And we have shown that to be the case in that diagram that we showed before this. But you're forgetting another anomaly that we are unfortunately running alongside with, but on time. That's the return to a glacial period, isn't it? So we can see the ice is rebounding. We know that where the highest intensity is where the magnetic North Pole is tracking towards, i.e. Russia. We know why it's doing that, because the intensity used to be stronger in the Canada region, and that's why for the last 780,000 years the North Pole has been there permanently for that period of time. When you obviously admit the fact that we have had some excursions, well, excursions are not completed reversals, and that, you know, doesn't mean that we should forget the fact that the Earth is 500,000 years overdue another completed reversal. You know, everything, as I presumed would do, is starting to all fit together. You know, the dots are now slowly being linked up. We know that the rotational speed can be changed, and not just the rotational speed, but the rotational axis can be changed by just moving the mass around of the ice on the planet. We know that, you know, from that study that scientists was doing, they found that when the Earth's rotation increased in speed, you know, it increased the magnetosphere. That's not a bad thing, because that offers us protection at a time where we're in the grand solar minimum, you know, which is another bad thing that we're going through. If you watched the video yesterday, you'll clearly see that none of this is speculation. It's all backed up with facts and accepted by a lot of the mainstream organisations, including those scientific organisations that are well known, NASA, ESA, NOAA, etc. You know, all this is coming together now, and I'm not surprised that all these things are linked. I think what we're going to find in time to come, maybe a decade or two from now, is that the major player in geomechanics, let's say, is going to be the Earth's magnetic field, because it seems to regulate everything else down the line. It regulates temperature, and if it regulates temperature, that can regulate where the mass accumulates on the planet, and depending on where the mass accumulates on the planet alters the rotational speed. Do you get where I'm going? All these things are falling nicely in line now, and we're starting to get a better understanding of how our Earth actually functions. And when we look at the Milankovitch cycle, we got a nice clear cycle there. Funny, it might be that the climatologists that support global warming, caused by CO2, don't even mention, the glacial and interglacial periods, because that would definitely throw a spanner in the works, wouldn't it, for them? It just surprises me. I'm sure it surprises you guys. What day and age we are actually living through, with the dumbing down of the general public. And I think it's a disgrace. It's a bad service. It's a public mistrust. The public pay into this kitty via the taxes, money for it to be spent purposefully, and you would argue that it isn't. It's been squandered on a lot of stupid products that will never mature at all. I will stand on my head for a complete day if they ever get one of these fusion reactors to actually function like they would love to see it function. It will never work, and they've spent trillions already on it, and they can't get it working or sustained for a couple of minutes without it destroying the equipment. It'll never ever work. It doesn't make any difference how big you build the next fusion reactor. It won't work. I watch someone very popular on YouTube, and it tickles me because in the way he describes these 0 point energy machines and free energy, it's as though they are already here and working. And I'll tell you now, I've spent 25, 30 years of my life building all these self-proclaimed 0 point and free energy devices, and none of them have ever been successful. I guarantee you, if someone is showing something on YouTube, it's a fraud. There isn't it there yet. I think that, with my own findings on this, I think that first of all we'll first discover how to overcome gravity. Someone's going to sit down and say, okay, what is gravity? How do we then overcome it? Now we understand it. I think that once we overcome gravity, then we're close to this 0 point free energy that everyone wants. But the only free energy that we're going to get is if we purchase first of all a solar panel, and then we're limited to just the hours in the day, aren't we? Same for the wind turbine. No wind, no power. No sun, no power. But that's the best we've got, and the closest we'll get to it at this point in time. And I know I'm going to get beat up in the comment sections for saying that, but guys, I have researched it for a long time, and I've got quite a I do pride myself on my collection of failed attempts. And I've even done the hydrogen oxygen electrolysis methods. You just can't generate it enough, and even if you can, the consumption of electricity that you're using to generate the hydrogen and oxygen just outweighs the benefits. It really does. So yeah, that's where we are. But interesting that all these things are starting to come together, and we're starting to get a picture how the inner workings of our earth function, and what things lead to different outcomes. And I think that's really interesting, and I'm sure you will at this point in time, because that we live at times where the magnetosphere has wingled away to only 75% now. We've lost 20 to 25% of our magnetosphere, and in doing that we've lost the protection of 25%, or the value of 25%. That means that the risks in catching cancer and having a heart attack have gone up by 25% as well, across all biodiversities. You can't deny it. These are the times we're in. We're going through, or returning back into a glacial period. We're going through a geomagnetic reversal. We could see what was theorised by some really important scientists in our history. I'm talking about the possibilities of a rotational axis shift, and then at the same time, we're experiencing a time of low solar output. You'd think that we'd done something seriously wrong, human beings, and that the whole solar system was against us, wouldn't you? It does make you think sometimes. And when you look at the behaviour of some people in this day and age, you even think that twice more than you would normally. Guys, I want to thank a few of them that came along yesterday, watched the video and chipped in. And again, I see the same names, just to mention one, Miller City Farms. It's without you guys, we would struggle here to put our content out and keep up with the equipment. We're at a time where we should have a lot more equipment out than what we've got in the field right now, but we're just doing the best with what we've got. And it's a real sad reality when you get 5,000-6,000 people view the videos and just chip a few bucks in. Even though we are very grateful for those few people, we know that there are a lot of people not pulling the weight, and they could easily do that. But I don't know what it is with them. I really don't know why they don't help. What does it take for them to, be motivated enough to help others, especially in this sort of field? You can't get this information anywhere else at this level. Impossible. There's certainly isn't anyone else with magnetometers like what we've got in different countries, or the Trimag system, or the muon detectors that we have out there. So it's getting to the point where I almost think it would be a miracle if we start seeing a few more people come along and chip in a few bucks. But that's exactly where we are. I would love to see more people support what we do, because we can save people's lives. We can save people's lifelong work with what they've accumulated over that time. We can protect that for them if they take a little bit of notice of what we're saying. And you know what? Even though we don't want to encourage people to make money on the back of this, you could quite easily do that. If you just thought about it, you could quite easily make a hell of a lot of money out of this information. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to help genuine people stay out of harm's way and keep ahead of the curve of information relating to these topics. So the link is down there, guys, if you want to help support us. The only other thing for me to say is, guys, you have a great evening wherever you are. Take care of your loved ones. As always, bye for now.